Welcome back to the Professional Lovers Channel.
Another week of Married at First Sight and another recap. If you are joining us for the first time, we like to talk about relationship issues through the lens of Married at First Sight, sprinkled here and there with a little bit of our own experience of a 28-year marriage.
And welcome.
So we're happy to have you with us, and we have a lot to get into.
Yes.
So let's dive right in, starting out with Mark and Lindsay. So they've hit some bumps in the road.
Yeah.
Trying to navigate how each other is.
Yeah.
Got back home. Mark's situation with his apartment.
Landlord.
They visited each other's apartments. Got to see how each other lives.
Had to go in hazmat suits.
Had to go in hazmat suits to Mark's area because of the bed bug situation. And, Lindsay was just like, let's just
grab what we need.
And here, I got the bag. You put stuff in it. Do you need this? What do you think about this? Does this bring you joy? If not, let's just chuck it. And she was just about, let's get in, let's get out.
And done.
And it was kind of overwhelming for him.
It was.
And that was kind of their theme for the whole episode, was that she's overwhelming and he doesn't know how to handle it. And then how he reacts triggers her because it sends her mixed signals and it frustrates her.
Yeah.
But before we
because he's already frustrated.
Right. But before we touch on all of that, he went to her apartment, met all her plants by name, and felt that it was very Lindsay-esque.
Yes.
This apartment is very you, very earthy.
Mother Earth.
Earthy.
Yes.
All of the plants that have names that you talk to and that you water every day. And, which kind of shows the nurturing side that he acknowledged, but said
he's very unaccustomed to.
Unfamiliar with. Not used to being nurtured and cared for. And it might seem weird that a person would have a problem being nurtured and cared for.
And the thing about it, we grow and we live under the circumstances that we live, and we grow accustomed to our surroundings and how to maneuver and navigate life on an everyday basis. And we get accustomed to doing certain things certain ways.
And that was the real issue. That Mark didn't feel like he was in control
of his own situation.
Right, of himself or the way that he normally handles situations. And that's a fair statement.
Yeah, he felt he wasn't even in his own skin.
And that was because Lindsay overwhelmed him.
Yeah, with her willingness to provide whatever she felt he needed to get past whatever it was he was dealing with at the moment.
And that's the key. What she felt he needed.
Right.
Instead of finding out what he needed.
Right.
And that happens a lot with couples. I mean...
And see, believe it or not, I don't believe that he would not or refuse help from her. But she never even inquired. She just said, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And then when they were in his apartment, she did something, and I think she broke or something dropped or whatever the case may be, and she knew she had made a mistake, and she kind of backed up from that situation because he mentioned that he didn't want something
that he had just said, be careful,
right.
and then that's what happened.
And again, that's his way of being diplomatic as opposed to don't touch that. Just leave that alone. I'll handle it. I don't need you to touch that right now. I'll deal with that. And that's what he does not feel he has the right to say, which he does, but due to the fact that it doesn't come out naturally, he feels reservations about saying things certain ways. Understanding who she is, I believe he can say anything any way he feels like saying it, and it won't Well, I'm not saying.
Oh,
I'm not
because
saying.
I'm going to say
in
at the
derogatory
honeymoon.
manner.
No, but at the honeymoon when he tried to do that,
But he didn't say.
She didn't receive it.
Well, because he was tiptoeing around what he wanted to say.
But it made him scared to speak up. That was
he
the
was
point.
Already scared. That's why he didn't say what he wanted to say.
That's the point that he brought out with Pastor Cal. I tried it one time, and it didn't work. So I've just been, keeping myself clamped up.
And lack of communication is never a good thing when you're developing a relationship. Because if you put it all out there, you can taper things. But when you don't put it out there, it's an expected situation that you don't feel a certain way about a situation, or you don't have anything to say about a certain situation, or that it's all right with you, whatever that situation may be, because you have not said anything about it. So sometimes you just got to be who you need to be, especially when you're learning somebody and they're learning you. They do need to know the authentic you.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Well, at the same time, though, you might need to dial the authentic you back a little bit.
I understand
because
diplomacy.
Timing is important.
True.
How things are said are important. What you say is important. All of that works together.
Okay.
And so if I don't know you yet, then I'm a little tiptoey about how to go about doing that.
Well, from Lindsay's perspective, she's the same 1,000 Lindsay.
And that's a problem. It's creating a problem.
But what I'm saying is that, I'm saying she doesn't dial it in a little bit. Because again,
that's
this is
not
a new
her
situation.
But that's not her.
But him being combative, for lack of a better term, that's not him. But it still has to be addressed. So that's what I'm saying. You have to somehow bring out the authentic you in saying what your dislikes are.
And the bottom line is he has to do it his way.
Yeah.
And in his time. Now, the one thing that I fault him for is the mixed signals that he sends. To say I need to slow down, but I'm going to go ahead and have sex with you whenever we want it, because it feels good, but I need to slow down. Those do not compute. Two things don't go together.
Okay.
Either you need to set some boundaries on the intimacy that you express while you're slowing down so that you can keep your head clear. And I think that frustrates her a lot because he doesn't seem to set those kind of boundaries. So what does slow down mean? Does it just mean on how much you want to do for me and nurture me?
Well, see, by you asking those questions, it gives an opportunity to gauge what it is that needs to be addressed. His manner of communication does not lend toward that because he miscommunicated in that instance because it wasn't about the intimacy of where they were at. It was how intense everything was. Everything. Not necessarily just the sex, but I mean everything. Everything was intense.
Everything's at 1,000.
Right. So
all the time.
In his saying pull back, yeah, he could have said you need to pull back here, you need to pull back there, you need to pull, but I don't know. And I really do believe that Lindsay will accept and understand and be willing to listen to whatever it is that he would try to explain, but he has to be a little more descriptive than how he has been.
And so clearly, effective communication is something that they have to learn.
Yeah, well, it's
both
critical.
of them.
It's critical,
and that they have to work on. Both of them.
True.
But you do have to let somebody be themselves because the time that you spend will promote growth eventually for him and for her.
True.
And even with that, just like we were talking about us, I'm a little bit more assertive in
Mm-hmm.
certain areas than you are. I'm a little bit quick thinker. I'm more quick thinking on my feet. Respond
Well, you're a
quicker, process
communicator. You're a
quicker,
communicator.
and that's not particularly how you operate.
Yeah, that's not my best asset. I mean, not to say that I'm not a communicator, but I just do it in
a different way. It takes you longer to process
methodical
things.
way.
Yeah, you have to think things through, and you need to have time to do that. And I have had to learn how to let you have that time.
Yeah, well, see, I didn't grow up having to argue with, 2, 3, 4 siblings,
True.
Yeah. So, but I mean, your environment and how you grow does play a major part in how you develop.
Absolutely. And then one tip that we can bring out in the book, and I'm sorry that when I hold it up, you see it backwards, but says respect each other's individual needs, especially at this time when you're learning each other. You have to respect where each other is. You even have to respect the weaknesses.
Yeah.
Because that's part of who each other is at this point in time.
And you said the word just a minute ago, growth. Growth doesn't happen instantaneously.
Right.
It's a process, and it has to go through a means of nurturing and watering and fueling and understanding, especially if there's someone who has to do the nurturing. They need to understand how it's supposed to be done. So, the time factor is critical, but you have to be open and objective to understand that you're now dealing with another person. You're dealing with another personality, another character.
Yeah.
And yeah, even if they are on 1,000 all the time, it's still who they are, and they've been that way.
And what you asked for, as Pastor Cal told them both. You both got what you asked for.
True.
So how you make it work is where we are right now.
And, and I really believe as long as they can get this communication thing down, and, who knows, that might be part of the growth process. There may be, spikes of, not volatility, but where they just
intensity.
Even more than intensity. It's like when we first started our marriage, we used to have little ways of communicating with each other that neither one liked. And we came up with a little thing that would allow the other person to know, just from that word, that, okay, we need to reel it back in a little bit. And it was just the word, bitey. And that was, just saying, okay, that was a little snippy. That was a little more than was necessary to get your point across at the moment, but saying it in 2 syllables as opposed to a dissertation and having it become a battle. It was just, okay, we reached the pinnacle on that one. Let's reel it in just a touch, do something different, talk different, whatever the case may be. But it worked. And it got to a point where, we didn't have to say it a lot. But, when it was said, it was respected because it's something that we both agreed upon, and it worked.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it works for them in future episodes. Katina and Elijah Wan. Elijah Wan just sat on this kick of, I need you to cook for me every day. In his mind, his expectation of a wife is, I'm going to get a home-cooked meal
cater to
all
me
the time. Barefoot pregnant in the kitchen. Okay?
Well, when Pastor Cal came out and told him, okay, you have the Neanderthal mentality, he was like, no. Because again, when you harp on something that is heard consistently, it's not that you're hiding anything. You're just expressing really what's in your mind.
And he really wants to see her in the kitchen.
Yeah. And he said it even before.
She's like, I'm not really, I basically have gone out to eat. I feed myself however I feel like it at the time as
She'll
a
be
single
cooking
person.
spaghetti a lot.
So that's not really her deal.
No.
And Pastor Cal called him out and said, "Hey, this wasn't a deal breaker when we were interviewing you and asking you what you didn't say anything about she had to be willing to cook for me every day." Yeah. And, he kind of laughed it off, brushed it off.
Although I remember the conversation that he had with his boys. And they kind of pulled his coat saying that, that's a crazy expectation to have her, come in and do that, And I think because he's the poker, he's accustomed to, doing the poking.
Getting the reaction.
He's going to have to taper that in because he's going to get poked too. And he's not going to like it.
And Pastor Cal kind of brought that out when he was talking about the horseback riding and his attitude. Yeah. But he asked Katina, "Do you feel like he values your opinions?" And she said... She
hesitated.
But she said yes. Although I don't always like his execution.
Yeah, well...
As in how he communicates.
And I heard the exact same thing that you heard. But what I saw was her hesitation. She had to somehow formulate her thoughts before she can just say, "Well, sure he does." That would never have been her response. "Well, sure he does." No, that wasn't coming out.
Well, do you think that the hesitation was because she wasn't sure, or because she was trying to make sure that in the encounters they have had, that it ends up being that her opinions are heard? Because he has always said, I push for reaction to see how far I can take it. Right. And when she says that's it, then he pulls back. So from that aspect, her opinions are heard.
But no, true. And it's not
and valued. Now, the fact that she's got to go through all that to get him to that point
causes the hesitation.
Is the execution that she doesn't like.
Which causes the hesitation to the response to the question.
Yeah. So
one of the nonverbal cues.
And then supposedly, now we know how many couples have lied about not having sex, on this show where no, but yeah, we did like 2 days in. So they are saying no. And he supposedly has been the holdout.
Yeah.
Which was, I don't know if I believe it, but that's what he said. That he's been the holdout because he's not sure that this will be a long-lasting marriage relationship.
Yeah.
That he has held back on that. And Pastor Cal said that is not...
That's the
mentality to have.
That's the old thing about trying to be perfect in a situation, and, he wants everything else to be perfect and on point. And then when we get to that, that'll just be, the icing on the cake. You're already bonded. I mean, you're legally married. It's the two of you. So the holdout for any particular reason other than it's a mutual agreement.
And then for emotional bonding. Because
again, women are more emotionally involved in that bonding than men are. Not to say that men are not emotionally involved, but it can backfire because I believe she even responded that, it could potentially feel as if she's not desired.
Right.
Which, again, is not a favorable outcome.
Right. So we'll see if they've consummated their marriage between now and next week. Noy and Steve. Okay. We've talked about couples that have pets before.
Yeah.
And, this idea that Sushi has to sleep in the bed with them, snuggled up to her between them, That's a lot for somebody who doesn't have pets or who doesn't treat their dog that way.
Or the fact that you are now married,
right,
and you're going to stick an animal into your
bed in the middle of you.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I mean, he even gave an option. I can put something or build
Can the
something.
bed be right next to you?
On the outside.
On the outside. No, she's got to stay snuggled up to my face.
She might even want to be on the pillow.
On the pillow. And
like, not on the pillow that I'm going to be rolling over onto. And I don't care what kind of animal it is.
Honey child.
Yeah.
You know, that's a bit much.
I think your priority should change.
Well, I mean, just like she's stuck on 3 kids. It's 3 or nothing. It's 3.
That's superstitious.
That's 3.
I'm hoping that's just
why? Well, because there's 3 in our family. All my family has 3. That seems to work well. 3. And I'm glad that Pastor Cal helped her understand what Steve was saying is, I'm not saying we can't have 3, but what if we can't have 3?
Yeah.
What you going to do then?
You know, special needs kids.
Right.
Or 2 and, you know,
or don't really have the finances for 3. Or don't have all of the time and resources we need for 3.
She's talking about
and that's a deal breaker. The number of children you have is a deal breaker. So, anyway, Pastor Cal seemed to help her understand.
Hopefully.
That your expectations may not always be met, and you have to be flexible with that, just in case.
You have to be flexible in all circumstances.
And that's all he wanted, was that she be flexible. But then, you know, talking about his financial state.
Or his professional situation.
The fact that, you know, she has been through a childhood.
A very stressful upbringing.
Yeah, where they didn't have
much of anything.
To grow up without running water.
Yeah.
You only had 2 shirts to wear. I mean, how many of us grew up that way? I did not.
I don't know too many people.
Not that we were rich, but we were not struggling like that.
True.
And I can't imagine how that imprints on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, his kind of freewheeling idea of just, you know, I have a lot of skill. I can do businesses on my, and that's fine as long as I see you doing that.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it. I mean,
and that's
in
what
his
she needs.
Plan, right. He needs to provide her a plan that gives her some security. And then on top of that, he's going to have to act on it so that she can feel secure that income is coming in, or whatever the case may be, is that, you know, that would allow her to feel a sense of security as a family.
And I don't know that he understands right now that that's what she needs, is a sense of security, because his parting words were, I don't know if I can give up my freedom, basically sacrifice my freedom and my desire to create and do as I want to do to give her the kind of security that she needs. And that's a little scary. Because it doesn't really have to be all or nothing.
Exactly.
But you do have to negotiate and compromise in order to be able to satisfy what she needs and to satisfy what he needs. Mm-hmm. So hopefully he will come to that point where he's not inflexible on that point like she is on the children. Yeah, it's both inflexible.
I'll go to work if you decide to have 2 children.
Right. Yeah. Jasmine and Michael having communication issues as well.
Yeah. And again, I think he's in a similar situation with Mark, that he doesn't express himself very well.
Okay, now the biggest communication issue of the entire evening was, have you ever lived with a woman before?
No, never.
No, never. And you got 2 female roommates. On what planet would a woman not think that you were trying to keep that from her, or you were lying about it? Now, you did say.
Well, right. I believe that when he heard that question And again, he has to think past just the literal words. Or no, they weren't even the literal words, because if they were literal words, he would have answered it differently. I believe that he heard in her question, have you ever lived with a woman intimately? Didn't hear that word, just lived with a woman. He said, no, never. Knowing that he grew up with only women in his home, currently having 2 women as roommates. No, I have never lived with a woman intimately. Would have been a more.
And here's the thing that I say. He's in his 30s. We both in our 30s. We're intelligent. We lived a long time. So if that's what you're thinking, how easy would it have been to say, have you ever lived with a woman before? Well, I've never lived with a woman in a relationship, but I have 2 female roommates.
Yeah, just full disclosure. Full disclosure.
Boom.
Simple.
Done.
Yeah.
Out there.
Hey, it could have been a topic of discussion that allowed y'all to just communicate on a different level. Hey, you got 2 roommates.
Or
what's that like?
You could have asked, well, what do you mean by that? Like in a relationship?
Yeah.
But you just say, no, never. And then 2 roommates pop up who are female? Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So.
And the only way that she finds out is by being in his apartment and seeing one walk through. I'm like.
Bad way to find out.
Okay, is that your roommate's girlfriend? No, that's your roommate.
And then when she's explaining it, he's like, okay, so, I mean, but what does that mean? Like, is that a problem? Like, are you that clueless? You cannot be that clueless. What you are is trying not to look like you're getting caught in a lie, even if it was unintentional.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and you're trying to save face.
But again, I think it's stemming from, just my opinion, I think it's stemming from his unwillingness to say something wrong or inappropriate, or say something that she doesn't like, or I think he has a concern about this attempt to getting to know each other needs to be a easy road. It needs to be comfortable.
He's making it uncomfortable.
Yeah, he is. He's creating the situation.
He created that one.
Definitely.
Now, we've seen her create some situations, but he created that one. You know, and then, of course, he felt like she wasn't portraying him correctly when she was explaining her issues to Pastor Cal.
And I think that, you know, in her frustration, she can be a little... Again, my opinion, I think she was being a little dramatic in expressing how she was feeling at that time, but she was feeling that way. And I don't think she was doing it necessarily to make him look bad, but she just was not feeling that conversation the way it was being portrayed. Because she understood how she felt behind how he communicated with her when there was disagreements or whatever the case may be. And again, it's what she's accustomed to. If she's not accustomed to having arguments, any raising of a voice or any, you know, confrontational
escalation of passionate discourse,
can
be viewed as you're yelling at me.
Exactly. You know, and again, she's a mild-mannered, perceptionally even-keeled individual, you know, where her barometer doesn't go up and down, and she would like it to remain that way. And maybe he's the one to stir her coffee. I don't know. But somehow they just gonna have to find a way to communicate better.
Right.
So.
And we saved this couple for last because there's not much to say. Yeah, so Elise and Chris was like,
This
deuces,
is my decision.
Bye, Felicia. I'm out. And she started to cry. All up until then, there were no waterworks. But when he was like, I'm done, I want a divorce.
Oh.
Then all of a sudden it was like,
I didn't expect it to end this way.
But I stayed. I stayed here. And
for what?
And I could have left a long time ago.
No, you
I
did
didn't
leave
think
a
it was
long
going to
time
end
ago.
like this.
You were enjoying a vacation.
Done. I have to say, when he said I wanted a divorce, I said, Chris, that might not have been the appropriate thing to do, but how much can one person take?
But you know, even when she came up with talking about what he had written on his Instagram, you know, did she ever question him about it? You know, talking about defund the police. People who talk about defund the police and just use it as a talking point to be against it don't really know some elements of it. It's not to take the police away. It's just to use funds in other situations.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
let's
trying
not
to
get
get
into
political.
that. Yeah, because...
But to find out that his best friend is a police officer.
Yeah.
Who knows about his stand on what that is?
Well,
But she never asked him, well, what do you mean by that?
She never gave him the opportunity to explain anything. And that was the point. All of her, I tried to make this work. I tried to 100%. I'm giving. No, you did not. All the mess that she told her mother was from her perception, which we all know was not factual. Okay? It was her perception of herself that she wanted to have, and then projecting all of her messiness onto him. And, you know, so we don't even need to waste another minute. They're done.
Yeah.
I'm happy that Chris went ahead and got out of it. And, you know, we know that they're under contract. We know, we've heard that, you know, they have to pay back money if they get out of it. We don't know if they let him out of the contract because of her treatment, her refusal to engage in the process the way she was supposed to. Mm-hmm. We have no clue. But he's gone. See ya. Okay. So.
Down to 4.
Down to 4. And we've seen it happen before.
True.
But we're down to 4. Ooh, that rhymed. Anyway. So there you have it. And from the looks of things, there will be more fireworks among the other couples down the road. But we are really hoping that,
it's growth.
That all of them will find that
balance.
That balance that they need in order to really benefit from the strengths that each other brings to the relationship.
Even better word is alignment.
Yeah.
With one another.
Yeah. But we'll see. Until then, you guys stay safe.
Please.
And we'll see you next week. Peace.
Enjoy.